Don't even ask. I'm not even going to go there. I came in, he was here. I don't know. Had a great day with Judith Owen yesterday. I've been doing yard work all morning and really heavy stuff, and I think I trashed my rotator cuff this time. When you're doing pole pruning, you're hyperextending, and it's got to get done. But at the end of the day, you just kind of go, I should have hired somebody, but it turned out great. I'm happy with it, so that's all that matters. Back to Judith. We had a great day in the studio yesterday. We filmed a little of it. It's really hard when you're set up like we are. She's in a complete piano ISO booth, and I'm outside the booth, and the engineer is in the control room, and he was trying to do a little filming, but trying to get us both in there and at the angles and stuff was hard. But maybe when I finish this video, I'll throw a little snippet up of what we were doing yesterday. But God, she's so good. She's written some just incredible songs. I think we got 4 songs yesterday, and we're going to go back in tomorrow, and we're going to cut 4 more. But she's a force of nature. Just exquisite songs, exquisite performance. I love working with her. That's all I can say. Oh, Judith, hi, how you doing, babe? I've got the phone sitting in the other room now. I've got everything dialed in, and I still forgot to shut off notifications on there. But I think I do this just to make everybody else who's not doing amazing things with their computer feel they have companionship here with me. Simpatico. But man, my hands are absolutely, completely trashed, and I need to have them good for tomorrow. So what do? I do yard work. And then I come in and I decide, I've had a few people write to me about this song. I believe the last email I got was from Rebecca Johnson, who's one of my absolute favorite bass player singers down in Australia. Look her up on YouTube. There's tons of performance. Her band is so funky, it's so good, and she is such a badass bass player and singer together. I mean, it's as good as it gets. I sit there and watch her videos all the time, and I'm just like a uber fan of what she does. So Rebecca Johnson Band, check them out. And but I think she wrote to me and she said, "Oh, you think you're ever going to play this song?" So I'm going to play it, but man, it's a bit of a handful, and so I'm hopeful I will not make this a complete disaster. But when we did Phil Collins's No Jacket Required tour, first off, we had an incredible band. It was Phil, it was J. Peter Robinson on keyboards, who Phil had been in Brand X with. And Peter is like besides being one of the funniest human beings I've ever known in my life, and a complete gearhead freak, he's just an amazing, amazing musician. I've done movie scores. He did, I think, the Highlander movie, and I did that with him. But he's an amazingly talented guy and a dear, dear friend. So he was on keys. Daryl Sturmer was on guitar, Chester Thompson on drums, and the Phoenix Horns. Don Myrick on sax, Louis Satterfield on trombone, Michael Harris on trumpet, and Romley Michael Davis on trumpet. And they were amazing. They were the cats, that did Earth, Wind, and Fire. So, how can you go wrong with that? And then Phil. And Phil was like just coming into his space at this point. Up to that album, he was the drummer from Genesis, then became the singer with them. But as a solo artist, he really had just, with face value, had just ventured into this territory. And No Jacket was Sussudio becoming the giant hit that it did. Suddenly, he was like the darling of pop music. He was everywhere, and deservedly so. Phil, his sensibility as a pop songwriter is as good as anybody out there. And his musicianship is as good as anybody out there, and his singing is as good as it. I mean, he's one of those guys that just had it all, and almost didn't even realize it. I mean, he's so self-deprecating and really just a humble, sweet cat. I mean, you could expect the opposite from him, but that is not what it is. He's really an amazing cat, and I do miss the fact that he can't play drums anymore, because as a drummer, he was as good as anybody I've ever worked with. His feel, his pocket is just something pretty amazing. And I may have mentioned it before, but when we did, I believe it was Tarzan. It was either Brother Bear or Tarzan, but I think it was Tarzan, where Tina Turner did one of the main songs on it. And when we premiered the movie in New York, we played at it. Tina came in and sang with us for it, and so she came in and kind of took over, and we had like, I don't know, 14 singers on it, because it was a big choir on the soundtrack. So when we did it live for the premiere, we had that same kind of a lineup, and Phil was playing drums on it, and so Tina comes in and starts telling everybody, what to, I mean, in a really cool way. I mean, she knew what she needed to hear. It was the track she had sung on, was balancing all the singers. And I looked back at Phil once we started, and Phil just had a smile on his face, because all he had to do was play drums, which is what he loves the most. And man, I looked at him, I just went, this guy's in hog heaven right now, back there, just playing drums and letting Tina be the boss. It was a great moment. It's a moment that nobody else really knew about. But I looked over and saw him. I could just see it when he looked over at me, in his face, that he was pretty happy to relinquish that seat to her and just sit back there and do what he really loved to do. But when we hit the road with the No Jacket Required tour, man, it suddenly shifted into another gear as Sussudio took off. And you couldn't go anywhere and not hear that song. And then, all the stuff from his catalog at that point, In the Air Tonight, was like everywhere and stuff. So it was great. But if you want to see something just beautiful, go on YouTube and put in No Ticket Required, not No Jacket Required, No Ticket Required. And the show that we did in Reunion Arena in Dallas, Texas, is on there. And it's pretty much most of the show on there. And when you see the band introductions, that's a whole other ball game. He goes into this Vegas character, and it went on forever. And the horn players were dressed like the Harlem Globetrotters with a basketball. I mean, it just went on and on and on. It was pretty hysterical. But Phil, the one thing about Phil is he loves humor and things. So to him, it was always just fun. And the thing that was really great with Phil is, like, if some celebrity showed up at the gig, Phil would take out his camera and he'd go, "You think they'll take their picture with me?" And I go, "They're standing there hoping they can come take a picture with you." But he's that kind of guy where he was going, do you think they would, let me take their picture? And he's a trip. Dude is a trip. And I wish him all the best. We may never play together again, but the memories I have of the time I spent with Phil is absolutely, I cherish every moment I ever spent with that guy. He's really something special. So there's this song that's been requested a number of times, is kind of a handful. It's Behind the Lines, it's called. And so I'm gonna venture into this territory. My hands are pretty shot, but I just kind of figured, screw it. If you can't play at your worst, then why even bother? So if I get my chops back up and I've had some Epsom salts, maybe I'll post it again down the line, because I won't remember that I've done this. Just like I did with Josephine, when I posted Josephine yesterday, and then a couple of people came on to remind me that about a month ago I played it. I had no idea. So I'm going to review all of my videos and write them down, so that I don't become, there's enough new material to dig into that I really don't need to start rehashing old material. Even though you do it another day, it's another sound, another feel, and it can sound differently, because like I've said in the past, I've never really played anything twice the same way. So, it's a little different with each nuance. But today I'm going to jump right into Behind the Lines, and let's see what happens here. Song starts real quick, so I'll probably miss the very first couple of notes because it's right at the top. But this is Behind the Lines. Close, close. A candy cigar, a bubblegum cigar. It's an easier song to play, I'll tell you, standing up, sitting down, especially when you're going up for that stuff, when you're up playing and digging in, it's a whole lot easier than sitting here kind of crunched over like Quasimodo. But Behind the Lines, and if Rebecca's listening to this video at some point, this one is for you, babe. Check her out, she's really good. And this is the same, Frankenstein, this is what I played in '85. This is what I did the album with, and this is what's in the no ticket required video. But that whole show, it was so good. It was just one of those tours that when it ended, it's just like you just kind of go, if I never worked again, it would be cool. You know, there are those moments in your life, in your career that happen where you just kind of go, if this was it. there was DJs here in Los Angeles, Mark and Brian, and we used to do their Christmas show every year. And it was really great. It was before Christmas, but their audience was a crack of dawn audience. So we did their shows at the Hollywood Palladium. And the show, I think, started at 6 a.m. is when our downbeat was for the show. And I was part of the house band. And they would get anybody from Neil Sedaka to Kenny Loggins, you name it. So many artists, Kiss came and played. I mean, all kinds of people would come and do the show. And it was great because the audience, I mean, I think most of them hadn't been to sleep yet. So they were like completely wired and going crazy and stuff. And the band was great with like Jim Keltner or Jeff Porcaro playing drums. We had like Tower Power horn guys. And I mean, it was an amazing band. Luke would come down, play guitar. And, but one of the segments of their show every year was they would get an old actor to come down, and they had this really cheesy fireplace set up in there, and the actor would sit there and read The Night Before Christmas. And it was one of those things where you just kind of went, Bob Hope came down and read it. Milton Berle came down. Jack Palance, I mean, they would sit there with this big book and they would read. Jack Palance came down, opens the book and he goes, "'Twas the night before Christmas." Boom, closes the book and does the whole, and it's a long poem, does it all from memory. And we were all just like kind of just sitting there. But in that show, it was really great because Mel Torme came down and sang a Christmas song, which he wrote. And Donald O'Connor came and did White Christmas. And I went into the dressing room afterwards and they were sitting there and I looked at them and I just said, if I die in a car crash on the way home, it's really cool. This was really good. Thank you guys. I mean, it was a funny moment. And I brought my other bass, the Japanese bass that was built for me, that was kind of like Frankenstein. It's very, very similar what they built. Nothing's this, but I brought that down to those shows because I had Milton Berle sign that bass. I had Bob Hope sign that bass. Debbie Reynolds sign that bass. Dick Van Dyke sign that bass. I mean, every time I would do one of these kind of shows, I would just grab those people because the old guard is something really spectacular in my mind. And every time I'm around any of those, Anthony Newley or any of those people, I would just kind of sit there and be sort of freaking out, because these are people that I grew up watching in movies, on television, and they carry a really special place in my heart. And I still feel that way about all those characters. So, okay, well, I am toast. I am so tired today. So I think I am pretty much done doing stuff because I got to be back in the studio with Judith tomorrow. But after this, I think I'll dig through. If I've got a little snippet, I'll just post a little thing. It'll probably only be like 2 minutes long, but it'll give you a little feel for what we were up to yesterday. I'll see if tomorrow we can get maybe the guy in the studio maybe to sneak. The thing is, if they come in the room, either room where we are, you wouldn't hear anything because we're on headphones. The only way you're going to hear what we're doing is if they film from the control room, and the vantage point isn't that good. So that's it. And I was watching Sunday morning shows this morning, and man, the anxiety in the medical community over numbers really starting to spike and climb in areas that have opened up, and people are not being responsible. There's all these videos of people in, big crowd situations, at the beach, in restaurants, and parks and all this, hardly wearing any masks and rubbing shoulder to shoulder. I mean, it's just like, what do you really have to be told to know what's going on here? It's like seeing somebody smoking who knows exactly what's going on with their lungs, and they still sit there and smoke and they won't give it up. And they're blowing smoke in the face of everybody around them. Well, that's kind of where we're at this point. I hate getting on my soapbox every day about this, but every time I go out to deal with anything, I mean, we're sitting in a recording studio that nobody's been in, and we're all still wearing masks in there. Judith is only taking her mask off to do her vocals in a closed room, and then she puts it right back. So try to be smart because everybody's lives are depending on. And if nothing were to happen, I'd really rather err on the side of caution than hope that nothing's going to happen. But there's some crazy, crazy stuff going on out there. I don't know what it takes for people to wake up and just not want to take chances, especially for something that you can walk through it, but the people around you might be affected by it. It's a pretty selfish state of affairs. But I got through behind the lines, so I can take a deep breath. It wasn't the perfect performance, but if I ever feel it coming on, maybe I'll throw it in again just as a little kind of a sorbet between an interesting story and a not so interesting story. I don't know. You take good care, and I wish everybody a fabulous week next week. Just get out there and if you go out there, enjoy yourselves and be safe. That's the most important thing. And I'll figure out what I'm going to do tomorrow. It'll be another abridged day because I've got to be in the studio with Judas. So maybe I'll grab something that we can just both listen to together, and I won't have to bone up on another song. It's been a challenge here. It's like, wow. Yeah, it's having to learn a new song every day or revisit a song. I'm not going to be, for the most part, people request, I'm not going to be doing other people's songs that other bass players have played on. I leave that to them. I mean, I have people writing, going, do a Rush song, do a Yes song. I love Geddy Lee and I love Chris Squire, and there's no reason to try to emulate them. They have their own unique style and do what they do, plus their rigs and all this stuff that they've got. I'm sitting here with a piece of firewood and a tiny amp, so I'm not going to venture into that territory and embarrass myself. I'd rather sit back and dig some brilliant players and enjoy them. So take good care. Still working on my finger book. We've got some ideas going there that are pretty cool. So that should see fruition, at some point, in the not too distant future, I'm hoping, and I'll tell you all about it. And then I'll turn into QVC here and be hawking my wares. But just take good care, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.